Boogie-Pop fandom kinda stinks. What's up, Sooty Tooty here. Before I end up giving my first impressions, I want to address something that I just ran into on to like a Facebook thread, which is the idea of not being able to judge shows uh based off of what you've seen episodically. Like I don't understand this. There seems to be some issue with giving scores to a show before it ends. And this makes no sense to me because when you give a score, you're not scoring the entire show. You're only scoring what you've seen, right? Unless I use the word will, the thing is not predictive. Like my score is not predictive. I'm not saying that in the future this show will be a 4. Now in this case, for this specific show, I did say this show will be a 4. After watching like the first episode, and then I watched the second episode, and I was like, okay, slightly better, but still not like good enough to make me think that it's not going to be a 4. But point being that this idea that when you say that a show that's not finished is a certain score, you're not rating the entirety of the show. You're rating the episodes in a collection up to that point, up to what you've seen, and you're rating that collection. I just wanted to throw that out before I ended up getting into the video. Now we'll actually talk about Boogie-Pop, right? So, on the subject of Boogie-Pop, like I said, Boogie-Pop seems like it is going to be a 4. I'll start with talking about the first episode. This probably isn't going to be too long of a video because my thoughts are pretty short and to the point. The first thing I wanted to talk about were the shocking cuts. I thought that was really bad. I thought they were poorly executed. From what I understand, they were trying to imitate something that was done within the original Boogie-Pop fandom, which is having these sort of transitions that were like really abrupt cuts, or like crazy, like weird edited cuts, and then it would transition to the next scene. In this, they weren't really weirdly edited. They were just randomly shocking cuts that kind of just got thrown and chopped within the episode that didn't make sense chronologically where we were. And so they just were kind of pointless, and had you not seen the PV or watched the original Boogie-Pop, they definitely didn't make any sense, and they were literally nothing but just random fucking shock. Still on the case of the editing, but in a different department, the sound editing was really fucking weird, right? So in the first episode, there seems to be this constant thing where the background music will just randomly, abruptly cut off. At first I thought that this is just like the dramatic cutting off of music effect before some big reveal happens. The problem is there's nothing that happens after the music gets cut off, so it's just an abrupt cut for no reason. And it's not as if it wasn't very noticeable. It happened like maybe 2 or 3 times, and so like, I don't know, kind of threw me off, and I noticed I wasn't the only one that noticed this as well after I talked to Scrolls and like Corey and stuff. So that was just something I thought I'd bring up. It wasn't an issue in the second episode, surprisingly, unless I just missed something. But I have no clue what the hell was wrong with that first episode. The first episode in general seemed really sloppy. I also say that because some of the walk cycles looked really weird. Character models seemed like off model, alongside like the sound issues that I just brought up. The first episode, and the editing stuff, right? In terms of like the shocking cuts and like the transitions and whatever. So the first episode seems really sloppy. On the subject of characters, in the first episode, they were really stoic and lifeless, and they only spoke in pretentious metaphors and dialogue. And what that resulted in was, while I wasn't like bored because the directing is decent enough to the fact where, you know, like at least they have the courtesy to switch the shot as they're still talking, or constantly switch shots as they're speaking. But the dialogue itself was just down like almost insufferable to just kind of like sit through. They're kind of shoving themes down your throat during the first episode, without any like appropriate build up towards, you know, the themes they're trying to fucking shove down your throat. You don't know these characters. The themes haven't been properly established. The setting and like the build up for the themes isn't properly established. So it's just a bunch of metaphorical talk. It's really pretentious. I don't like it. Second episode didn't have a problem too much within this regard because the main characters weren't really present from the first episode. However, it did suffer from the fact that the villains that we were then introduced to were very one-dimensional and not interesting in the slightest. It seems as if the guy has really pretentious motivations that are like, oh yeah, we'll create a new world, that generic fucking line. I don't know, it just seems like it's way too, it feels like the show thinks it's hella fucking interesting, and it's really not. I'll say that the my intrigue from watching the show is coming more from the fact that the narrative structure is just weird. Like the narrative structure is jumbled. And so when they do certain things like the shocking cuts or when they do like flashbacks or whatever, because it's not obvious that they're doing flashbacks or that the cuts are not in chronological order, at least like when you're first seeing them, and then you think about it within a couple of seconds and then you figure out. But the just simply the structure of the narrative is what keeps me intrigued, because it leads to a lack of clarity which makes me want to keep watching. It's more, my intrigue for this show is more of, somebody put this well on Twitter as well, I think it was Purple Geth. It's more of a what the hell is going on type of intrigue, as opposed to I'm genuinely interested in these characters and this mystery. The mystery is just coming from a lack of clarity, and that's it. And this is why I say you can judge certain shows based off of like their first couple of episodes, right? Because this is obviously going to be a 4 to me, because the foundation of these characters is that they're grounded in the idea of representing concepts, of representing ideas, and they don't necessarily have personalities aside from oh god, I can't remember what the hell her name is. Nagi Kirima, right? She's the only one that seemed to have like a genuine personality outside of really anybody. Boogie-Pop is kind of smirk, but she just, again, talks in metaphors, so she's not really interesting. And Nagi does not speak in metaphors and is just a genuinely kind of smug but interesting character at the very least, compared to everybody else, that is. Those are my main thoughts in terms of like narrative and things of that sort. In terms of art, I thought art and atmosphere is one thing that I actually do want to talk about. So me and Scrolls had talked about this as well. The color palette does not work very well with the lighting and the shading. The shading and the lighting are really nice, right? The problem is that the color palette feels, at least to me, so dull that it ends up you end up getting a picture that doesn't look very atmospheric. It doesn't look very grim, and it doesn't have any sort of tone to it. It actually ends up making the show look bland, because while the lighting and the shading are nice, when you mix them with like such kind of like dull colors, you get something that looks more like a toned down bunny girl, which is already like a pretty not very good looking show, if that makes sense. It's already a kind of dull looking show, if you get what I mean. And so the atmosphere kind of was not formed correctly. While talking about atmosphere, the background music also ended up being a problem, not because of the way it was cut, but because of the way in which or just the music itself. The music itself doesn't really fit the tone, like an eerie tone. I think the eeriest that everything that the show got for me was in the first episode when Boogie-Pop is just staring up at the crowd. And that's a case where like the colors match work very well with like the lighting and the shading and everything, right? But that's the only point in the episode. That's the only point within the first 2 episodes that actually feels kind of eerie. So overall, it seems pretty underwhelming. I wish the directing was a little less safe, is one thing I want to shout out, because Shingo Natsume has been, I don't know, my first taste of him was Akka, and I wasn't super impressed, and this is my second taste, but at least Akka kind of felt, you could kind of tell that certain things were building up, whereas here, there seems to be kind of like a lack of like real subtlety. It seems as soon as something is about to kind of be subtly hinted upon, they just flat out give you an explanation of it. For example, Nagi's like Messiah complex, as opposed to just showing or like hinting towards the fact that she's going around trying to save these girls, they just flat out she just flat out says, I have a Messiah complex. Or as opposed to like one of the main villains, the one that had said like he wanted to create a new world, going, I want to create a new world, or I'm an evil fucking bastard. Why? It would have been nice if they had just subtly hinted towards it with like facial expressions and things of that sort. So overall, very not underwhelming, because I wasn't expecting much out of it. I was just expecting it to look better. I was just expecting it to be kind of atmospheric and fun to watch. And on the subject of being interesting to watch, I guess it fills that regard, but it fills it for the wrong reasons. It fills it because of a lack of clarity, and more of a what the hell is going on, as opposed to I'm genuinely intrigued within the story and characters. So much for me going, oh yeah, this won't be too long of a video. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you guys did enjoy, please leave a like, comment, and deuces. I'm not gonna do this. I'll see you in the next video, because I mean, who knows if I'll ever upload again. Metro might have to fucking revive me with Dragon Balls. Deuce.
言って